Hello everyone, and welcome to Purdue Day of Giving. My name is Ronit Patnaik, and I'm a senior in biomedical engineering at Purdue University. Tonight, I'm here with Leah Jamieson, the John A. Edwardson Dean of the College of Engineering, and the Ransburg Distinguished Professor in the College of Electrical and Computer Engineering. Tonight, we will talk about the College of Engineering's strategic growth plan and all the transformations that are taking place in our college. So, Dean Jamieson, let's start with the basics. What is engineering's strategic growth plan in broad strokes?
Thanks, Ronit. So, broad strokes, over the 5-year period, College of Engineering is going to add 1,500 students, about half graduate students, half undergraduate students. We'll add 107 faculty, we'll add 105 staff, and we will also both renovate and build new space to be able to support that growth.
Very cool, very cool. What are the drivers that got this plan underway?
There are two things that drove this, because these are huge numbers. This is really a dramatic growth. They're internal drivers. The applications, every year the applications to engineering at Purdue keep going up, so the demand is high. And at the same time, we're seeing an increase in applications. Every year we're also seeing that the quality of the students applying keeps going up as well. And so there's simply an opportunity to provide, a Purdue engineering education experience for more and more students, and it's pretty compelling to want to try to meet that demand. The other half of it is the external drivers, the external context. And if we think about what will be happening in the world over the next 5, 10, 20, 50 years, the grand challenges for the world, so water, food, healthcare, the discovery of new medicines, the delivery of healthcare, security, physical security and cybersecurity, energy and sustainability, and just creating not only these really fundamental things about life, but the quality of life itself. How do people learn? How do people experience joy of learning, joy of discovery? These will not be solved by any one discipline, but engineering is going to play a huge role in addressing all of those. So there's a demand for engineers globally. There's a demand for engineers locally in the state and in the country. There's a lot of discussion about innovation economy and economic development, and engineering really is at the center of innovation, of developing the economy, of jobs creation. And combining these, there's actually a national call to graduate 10,000 more engineers a year. And Purdue is determined to be a significant part of those 10,000. Our goal is that we will account for about 5% of the increase of 10,000 engineers a year.
Wow, 10,000, that's a huge number.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
How is it connected to Purdue Moves? How is the engineering initiative
So the engineering expansion is one of the Purdue Moves. It's under the STEM leadership. And it is really saying that engineering is core to what Purdue does in STEM. It has been for a long part of its history and is going to be for a long part of it, a long way into its future as well.
Very interesting. Are there other engineering schools around the country engaging in this kind of growth?
There's a lot of growth happening in engineering. Everybody's encouraged that we're not the only ones seeing an increase in applications. There's no place that has a plan that is on the scale that is touching on all of the components, that really has a plan in place for the student growth, for the faculty growth, for the staff, for the buildings. And so we are unique in having a comprehensive plan and commitment to doing this.
Very cool. So I'm graduating this year, but future students will experience the improvements that this growth will provide. Right. So what are some things they can expect?
Sure. The most immediate thing that will affect students is that by the relative scales of the growth, the student-faculty ratio is going to improve. Part of the phenomenon we've been seeing is that the enrollment has been growing because there's been so much demand. And so this is an opportunity to say, let's make sure that the student-faculty ratio is low enough, that the quality of interactions between our students and faculty is really of the highest caliber. It's probably not so much what you see in class, but it's the quality of the conversations outside class, that it's not just help on my problem set, but career counseling, conversations about what opportunities in the field are. And certainly one of the things that Purdue Engineering's really been known for is a lot of innovation in engineering education. But you have to have capacity. You have to have some mental space to be able to say, I've got a great idea, I'm going to do something new in my classroom. And having more faculty balanced with the number of students really creates that mental space to be able to do that. So I think we're going to see a lot more interesting work. We're starting to see this already across the university, innovations in flipped classrooms, how do you use technology in learning, and a huge emphasis on hands-on, experiential learning.
Mm-hmm. So with all these growth, all these different forms of growth, how will student opportunities in research and internships be affected?
That's a great question. That's really at the heart of it. I mentioned experiential education. There are a lot of things that are well learned in a classroom, and even in a very traditional classroom setting. There are a whole lot of things that aren't learned in traditional classrooms, and just some of the professionalism, the communication, the teamwork. How do you think about open problems as opposed to just solving problems where the answer is known? And so internships, research experiences, service learning, so the EPICS program all fall under this. We're increasingly seeing entrepreneurship opportunities for our students, but they are more intensive. They require a lot of attention. And so again, the growth provides more capacity to be able to offer those and to be able to keep growing those opportunities. And so it's actually one of the really fundamental things that we're hoping will be pretty quickly evident from the growth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And yeah, internships and summer experiences, especially research, have definitely affected my career at Purdue and hopefully my future prospects. So the future engineer, Purdue engineer, will be different from the current graduating class of Purdue engineers. And how so? And what will be the similarities? I guess what will be the same and different?
Okay, what will be the same and what will be different? One of the differences isn't speaking to the individual students, but I think collectively to the students. One of the opportunities for growth at this scale is that it's an opportunity to enhance our diversity. And it really is one of the core values of the college, that the quality of the education, the quality of the innovation, if you're working on team projects, if you have people from different places, different backgrounds, different perspectives designing something, at the end of the day, the design's going to be way more interesting and way more creative. And so we're paying attention to that as part of the growth and to take advantage of that. And so I think just continuing to try to create this incredibly rich, diverse, intellectually stimulating, culturally stimulating environment. And because of the growth, we think that we can do that not tiny step by tiny step, but we can actually do this with some numbers that'll be pretty apparent readily to students. Beyond that, we've been on a trajectory of increasing the experiential part of education for the last 10 years. Yeah, we started about 10 years ago saying experiential education is a critical part. We have an initiative called the Purdue Engineer of 2020, and we are continuing to play that out. 2020 is getting closer, so we're going to be starting to look at, well, what's the Purdue Engineer of 2030? But the growth, the expansion, again, really is an opportunity not to incrementally make progress on that. It's an opportunity to really say, how can we make the statement that every single student who graduates with a Purdue engineering degree has had a significant experiential part of their education, that they've had a co-op or internship, they've had an undergrad research experience or an entrepreneurship or a service learning and EPICS experience, that they've had an international experience. And if we can say that for every single one of our students, I think that Purdue engineers are already highly valued in the workplace, but nobody's going to be able to top them.
That's really exciting, honestly. Yeah. something that students, especially engineering students at Purdue, are always thinking about is affordability and accessibility of education. How do you think the new initiatives will support those?
The affordability, I think, if you had told me when I was growing up that people would be sitting around the kitchen table asking the question about whether or not a college education was worth it, I wouldn't have been able to imagine that. I know my parents wouldn't have been able to imagine that. Neither of them had gone to college, and so for them, this opportunity to go to college it was a given. You'd never question that, and yet because of the affordability, those conversations are happening. And so I think for us, it really means there have to be two sides of this, that keeping this affordable is really critical, and making sure there's a value added is the part that has to go hand in hand with that. And so keeping those two in pace, affordable but valuable, is really, I think, for us the key question. Co-op, you mentioned co-op and internships. If our students are, because of the experiences they've had on campus, are among the most competitive for co-op experiences during the year and intern experiences during the summer, that's a part of the affordability, is that can you actually be doing meaningful engineering work even while you're a student? And so I think for us, continuing to enhance the quality of the on-campus experiences is pretty tangibly a part of that affordability equation.
Very interesting. So once I graduate, I'll be back maybe 10 years down the line, right? How do you think campus will change when I come back? How will it be different?
Okay, that is also a good question. I think that there'll be some physical changes as you walk around outside. There are going to be some new buildings. We have a new building, almost done now. There are a few more new buildings and expansions of buildings in the planning. I actually think that on the physical side, though, that you're going to have to go into the buildings to see the change, because the way we teach, the way you learn, the way we do research, all of these things have really changed over the past even 10 to 20 years, but certainly in the past 50 to 60 to 80 years, which is the lifespan of some of the buildings that we have. And we're not going to take those buildings down because their structures are fine. But we are going to be going in there and completely revamping them. So literally move everybody out of a building, and in the course of 6 months or a year, rebuild it from the inside out to create spaces that on the business side are more efficient in how we use space, more energy efficient, take advantage of things people have learned about working environments, so way better access to daylight throughout the entire building, not just the outside window, but can you get the daylight all the way into the middle of the building. But from a use point of view, more collaborative spaces, more interactive spaces, fewer lecture halls, technology integrated into the classrooms, but into the offices as well, enhancing the ability to do video conferencing, teleconferencing from wherever you are, and just a sense that this is not only a workplace, it's a workplace where the interaction of people is really what makes the great learning and the great discoveries. And I think you'll have to go in the buildings to see that, but it's going to be there and it's going to be exciting.
All right, very cool. So, and you said these reimagined spaces will tie in with experiential learning, right?
Yeah.
So what are certain forms of experiential learning that Purdue is exploring?
So we have a lot in the portfolio now. And I'll start with the one that, parents aren't supposed to have favorites among children, and deans aren't supposed to have favorites among anything we do, but it would be, I think it would be disingenuous for me to say that EPICS doesn't have a really special place in my heart. We founded it almost 20 years ago, and we're looking forward to what it'll look like 20 years from now. So EPICS, which is service learning, connecting teams of students with community needs, broadening the definition of community, so not just local community, but global communities as well. How do you practice engineering for the benefit of humanity and society. Co-op and internship are by far the longest standing forms of experiential education, and some of the work we're doing in that is obviously continuing to grow. More partner companies, more places where we're starting to try to build some partnerships with coalitions of startup companies, because co-op has always been really well established in big companies, but it's not so much of a thing in startups. But to work with a handful of companies to say, can we start providing internships and co-op experiences in startups for students, because that's a whole other kind of experience. Entrepreneurship experiences, there's an entrepreneurship certificate, international experiences, and what can you learn about the world sitting in West Lafayette, but also what are the opportunities to go abroad and to learn about this broader context, and engineering is a global profession. Research experiences for undergraduates, and those are the portfolio that I think for us mostly it's a case of growing it and continuing to make sure that the spaces support this, and that we have enough faculty numbers to be able to support it really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so speaking about experiential learning, actually, we had a senior design last semester in my major, and our lab coordinator for the program is on one of the preeminent teams at Purdue.
Okay.
Could you tell me more about what the preeminent teams are and how the idea of preeminent teams came about?
Sure. So when the Board of Trustees approved the expansion of engineering, and we had this 107 number suddenly in front of us, and a plan for that there really would be support for hiring that many faculty. We spent literally the first year after that, my team, when I was in town that first fall, if I was in town, I was having lunch with a group of faculty, just to ask, what is this going to mean? What are the most important things going to be? A lot of conversations about space, but above all, conversations about what's faculty hiring going to look like? How should we hire? What are we trying to accomplish with the faculty hiring? And then following up with small groups of faculty. And we knew that some of the faculty hiring was really very much driven by the growth in enrollment. So some of the faculty hiring is looking across the college and saying, where has the student growth been the greatest? Let's make sure that we're adding faculty in those disciplines in pretty traditional ways to match where the students are. But there's also a huge interest in saying, what are the strategic things we could do with the faculty hiring? And 10, 12 years ago, had done some hiring around what we called signature areas, interdisciplinary areas. They were very broad. Nanotechnology was one, energy was another, and they've really led to great things. We have great communities in nanotechnology and energy and some of the other areas. But we also kept coming up against this question about, can we sharpen our focus? Where are we really trying to be the best? And that became sort of the mantra of, are there areas where we could be the best, and what would it take to do that? And so out of that grew the idea of preeminent teams, and we opened it up as a challenge to faculty, and asked the question, what would it take in your area or in an area of emerging interest where we have some strength at Purdue, we have some leadership at Purdue, but with appropriate investment in hiring, in equipment, in space, we actually could compete at the highest level in the world, that we could make the world-changing contributions in these areas. And we invited faculty to do this. We set up a format. We wanted to take people out of their comfort zones. And so we didn't ask faculty to write proposals. We said the format, 5-minute elevator pitch, 5 minutes questions and answers following that. Opened up the sign up for this. We had 32 teams sign up to compete. We had over 160 faculty involved in those teams who competed in a first round panel of distinguished professors from across the college and also from some of the other colleges at Purdue. They selected 12 of them to move forward. We had a second round competition, which had a generous 10 minutes for the pitch, 10 minutes for questions and answer, get into more depth about, how much substance is there really here. And with that, a panel not only of internal academic leaders, but about half of the panelists were from outside. They were alums, business people who've spent their lives making decisions about where their company or their startup or their firm makes investment decisions, and selected 4 teams this year. And we're going to start it up again in September. And so we'll be doing this every year for the next several years.
Wow.
And the teams are amazing. They've already interviewed some of the new faculty candidates, making offers, building some of the specific strategic labs that are filling in the gaps to complement what we already have. And we think they're going to do amazing things.
So since some of the teams didn't make it to the Preeminent Teams this year, they'll reapply next year?
Absolutely, yeah. We had a lot of conversations about, with a selection of 4 out of 32, is this going to be discouraging? Because that was the last thing in the world. We were really trying to just say, we can do this. This is a great place to compete. And the first year was more about readiness than about quality of ideas or is this team really competitive? It really was, who's ready to hit the ground running? And I expect we'll have at least as many teams competing next year. And we've budgeted in the way that we've budgeted the faculty hiring. It's budgeted to be able to keep doing this for several years. And so there are going to be a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, and my senior design mentor was the one who actually got me really excited about BME at Purdue. So I heard his presentation as a freshman, and that really got me interested in it. So
and he's leading one of the Preeminent Teams and got everybody excited about his work.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. And it's really cool that students, undergraduates and graduate students, get to work in his lab and all the other labs and so on.
And and so he's talking about fundamentally changing the paradigm for how we monitor, detect, and treat some illnesses. That you take this completely comprehensive approach. You don't look for one disease at a time. You don't look at one part of the body at a time. Can you implant tiny sensors that are constantly monitoring your health? They're not isolated. They're a network, and they can then be monitoring how you're doing and make us healthier. And incredible technologies for how you develop the sensors, how you implant these tiny sensors with precision, how you do the networking, how they power themselves, because you're not going to go in and replace the batteries, and then what you can do with that to learn about how it can affect people's health. And it's an amazing project.
Yeah.
And they're all different, but that kind of excitement and that kind of potential impact. Yeah.
It's fascinating, honestly. Could you tell me more about the other 3 teams? Just a quick overview.
Sure, quickly. One of the teams is I can do a prop here. One of the teams hits very close to home, and it has to do with telecommunications and the complete explosion of smartphones, and therefore the exploding demand on spectrum bandwidth for telecommunications, and this is happening around the world. But if you look at the technologies behind how cell phones work, how mobile devices work, it has to do with the frequency spectrum, and that's not changing. There isn't more spectrum. There's just continually more and more users making more and more demands. Text messages are great. They don't use much bandwidth. Movies, whole other thing. And so there really is a question nationally, globally, about how are you going to manage that spectrum to meet the demands. How do you meet the user's demands, but how do you also make sure there's spectrum available for critical functions in security, for example, and defense applications. And so we have a team of faculty at Purdue who, with their students, have been competing in a national challenge for different approaches to more effective utilization of the spectrum. They've consistently been, every step of the competition, they've been coming in first by a big margin. But they want to do more with this. They want to augment their group with some people who are not only specialists in the electrical engineering side of this, but some of the economics and policy sides of how you do this. And so they're tackling the spectrum challenge. One of the teams I call the science fiction team, I guess. It's in quantum photonics, and it's really asking, can you use light, and can you by a combination of engineering and physics, change the fundamental building blocks for computers, for communication devices, for medical devices. And so it's really very much down there at the absolute most fundamental technology layers of what we build. Can you manage these, control these, understand these in a way that you could change everything about how we build devices? And then the fourth team is working in energetic materials. It turns out energetic is a technical term when you talk about materials. It's explosives. Mm-hmm. And so these are explosives, and this is a team that includes chemical engineers, mechanical, aerospace engineers, electrical engineers, mechanical. Did I say mechanical? Can you bring together an incredibly rich set of tools to be able to detect explosives, not only known explosives, but emerging and new explosives at a safe distance? Mm-hmm. So that if you have a football stadium or a baseball field or an airport or a school bus, that you can fundamentally increase the physical security by from safe distances, do a far better job of detecting explosives. It's exciting.
Yeah, definitely.
So these teams are going to change the world, mm-hmm. and it's pretty great. Yeah.
All right. So moving on, what do you think is Purdue engineering's reputation around the world, and what do you want people to think of when they think of Purdue engineers?
So the around the world is really relevant because I think sometimes some of us joke that the farther away you go from West Lafayette, the more people know about Purdue. When I travel around the world, people know Purdue, which is really pretty amazing. Mm-hmm. Our reputation, above all, graduating incredibly capable engineers. We are best known for our students, and I think that's something that I think we always want to be known for. So if you say that's what we're known for now, above all else, it's our students. In the future, I would hope that that'll always still be true, that people will say Purdue engineer, and for you, as you go out in your career, that it's a badge of respect and it opens doors, because that's really what the reputation has been and we hope will always be. I think layered on top of that, this idea of some of the world-changing research. Observation gets made a lot that whether it's being in the Midwest or whether it's Purdue or whether it's history, that we're not as good at bragging about what we do as some other places are. But I think maybe we're not asking anybody to brag. We're just saying, let's make sure that we're investing in work that is going to be so blazingly, obviously world-changing. You don't have to brag about it. It's just going to be out there.
That's a pretty good answer, actually. Yeah. So today we're here for Purdue Day of Giving. What has private giving meant to the College of Engineering over the years, and what will it mean for the success of the Strategic Growth Initiative?
I can't say this more simply. Private giving makes all the difference. Private giving is what has given us the capability to have great labs, both for learning and for research, for scholarships, to be able to make sure that great students can afford to come to Purdue. And we work on affordability, but the scholarships are a really important part of that as well. And it's absolutely critical for recognizing faculty, for retaining and recruiting top faculty, because faculty careers have a pretty shallow promotion path. You're an assistant professor, associate, full professor. And those are they're the three ranks. Mm-hmm. And yet we have people who hit full professor at 35 or 36, and they've got a great career ahead of them. And so this question about, well, how can you show the appreciation and the recognition, and also seed some of the really new ideas? They're not ready for external funding, industry funding, government funding, but you're just somebody who's a great thinker and you want to invest, so the professorships to help support. And so, it's what has made us not only a good College of Engineering, but a great College of Engineering with the growth that's going to be all that much more important. How are we going to not only recruit more students, but really be able to help wonderfully creative, capable, smart, diverse students come to Purdue. How are we going to recruit and retain the best faculty? How are we going to make the initial investments in new research areas? What kind of equipment that it takes to get something started? Buildings, new facilities, renovated facilities, and so the quality for how we're going to be able to do this is going to be because we have generous friends and alums who are going to, with their pride in Purdue, is going to say we're going to help us take those next steps.
That's really exciting. So, what kind of gifts are needed today?
I've mentioned 3 key areas. For us, priorities right now are in student support, faculty support, and space. But what that means, any gifts of any size, any kind, because collectively together, it adds up to really being able to do good things. I think especially on the student support side. So, so you're going to be, you'll graduate, you'll start working, and I think, a year out, you're going to look at this and say, well, I can't give that much, and what's my gift going to mean? Because people have heard about very large gifts, but the reality is that just starting and making that first gift is maybe the single most important thing any of our alums can do. Because the later gifts, maybe it is easier once people are further along in their careers, and we value that enormously. But I would also say the small gift that just is making a statement, and so the students who have some support, some scholarship, some kind of assistant can say, somebody believed in me, and that's maybe the most valuable thing we can do.
Yeah, so one of our BME classes actually started a scholarship a few years ago, and seniors every year before they graduate contribute to it now. Yeah. And we actually just did that a few weeks ago. And I mean, a lot of us got scholarships, so it's really nice to give back, and hopefully the viewers today will do so too.
And I hope that everybody out there will take that to heart. It really makes a difference in our students' lives, and it matters for our faculty. The space matters, but taken together, this is what's going to make us great.
And do you think engineering is going to win any of the Purdue Day of Giving challenges and competitions?
Yes.
Yes, of course. So we have a few live questions for you today.
Okay.
So from Chicago, Illinois, we have, when will Wang Hall be finished, and who is moving in?
Okay, so Wang Hall is on Northwestern Avenue. It's across the street from the MSEE building and the physics building. It will be finished this summer. July. Target date is July. To be able to move in late July and August, be up and running in the fall. About the core, there's about 40% of the building that it's called Wang Hall because it is named in honor of the father of a Purdue, an ECE alum, Patrick Wang, and so it's the Senliang Wang Hall, and it's named in honor of his father. And so ECE will be expanding into Wang Hall. Some of the specific research labs will be moving over there. Mm-hmm. The remainder of the building, the first floor will be leased. It's going to be commercial space, so we're hoping for some fun things. Cafes would be good, things like that. But the remainder of it, actually, because of the engineering expansion, we're going to be using a large part of it to help us as swing spaces. We're doing renovations. Mm-hmm. So the fourth floor, for example, the first group to move into the fourth floor is going to be industrial engineering. We're literally going to empty out Grissom Hall, move everybody out of Grissom onto the fourth floor of Wang Hall, completely go in. We have the designs in progress, and so they will start in August as well, take about a year, rebuild Grissom Hall from the inside out to have new and modern spaces. And when that's done, the industrial engineers will move back to Grissom, and then we'll start all over again. Probably next in line is part of the the old double E building. the old mechanical engineering building, the rail building, which is a historical monument. So the building's going to stay in place, but we are going to do a lot of work on the inside. Potter, which has just grown in lots of odd directions over several years, and so to have a coherent plan for that. So yeah.
Huh. Wow, that's a lot of changes.
Yeah.
So the next question looks like it's from a younger student or a younger adult. So what would you say would inspire young kids to consider coming to Purdue for engineering?
Oh boy, that is a great question. And so, the challenge with that question is that everybody resonates with something different. So to say there's one thing, the broadest statement, but the one I would hope would resonate the most, no matter who you are, come to Purdue Engineering and get ready to change the world.
Oh, yeah. This question is from a current Purdue student. What is the weirdest place in engineering that you're looking forward to renovating?
Okay, I'm going to go back to the example I just said. Grissom Hall. So Grissom Hall is our oldest building. It is 108, I think, years old. And it doesn't look it from the outside. It looks really good on the outside. It's all that stuff on the inside. So if you go inside Grissom, you need a map, because there's what looks like a main entrance, but it isn't a main entrance. You go in and then you just kind of come up against almost a blank wall, and there's a stairway, but you don't really know where it goes. And then once you get into the building, you'll go down a hallway, and then there'll be another hallway that goes off it, and then there'll be a bunch of little hallways that go off that. And if anybody ever wanted to construct some kind of a maze-finding robot to find its way out of a maze, Grissom would be a really good place. But they better do it soon, because we're going to change all that.
And this question looks like it's from a Purdue alum. What is the most striking change you've seen in college since you came to Purdue?
Okay, so I've got a long ways back. So I've been at Purdue for almost 38 years. I'm going to more and more meetings where I've been here longer than anyone else. So the greatest change, the most obvious really is the physical space. Continually the greening of the campus. And so, my first office was in the EE building, and there was parking outside on what's now the engineering mall, and now it's green space. If the entire stadium mall with the archway outside Armstrong Hall, that again was mostly driveway and car paths, and so the campus just feels much more like a place you want to spend time, and you want to spend time outside. You want to walk around. Discovery Park is an amazing change. The things that haven't changed, great students and great faculty. And you don't get to see that so much, but I think there's some things that haven't changed. But the most obvious changes on the intellectual side, I would absolutely say the two things are: we're way more interdisciplinary. We finally figured out that it works better if we talk to each other across disciplines, and we're way more collaborative. And those two, I think, are really the most striking, and the ones that have the biggest impact both on the students and on what we do.
And yeah, I can't imagine cars actually driving through campus.
Yeah.
I've seen some of the old photos, and I mean,
it's
it
good
looked very different.
If you came in early enough in the morning, you could actually park right in front of the EE building.
Oh,
it was
wow.
cool. It was good. Yeah.
So for our listeners, you can give to the College of Engineering or your favorite Purdue engineering program by going to dayofgiving.purdue.edu. Dean Jamieson, we'd like to wrap up our conversation and celebrate Purdue Day of Giving with a rapid-fire quiz that celebrates all things Purdue. Are you up for it?
Yes. All things Purdue. Okay.
Yeah. Here we go.
Okay.
Black or gold?
Black.
Smokestack or Purdue Bell Tower?
Smokestack. I'm showing my age.
A Slater Hill sledding or concert?
Sledding.
Purdue Mall fountain or Loeb fountain?
Purdue Mall fountain, definitely.
Boilermaker Special or Purdue Pete?
Boilermaker Special, because a few years ago my staff for a birthday present gave me a ride on the Boilermaker Special, so it was special.
Springfest Bug Bowl, cockroach racing or cricket spitting?
Cricket spitting, I think.
Purdue Day of Giving, give back or pay it forward?
Give back and pay it forward. Remember what Purdue did for you, give back, and look forward to this incredible future and help us get there.
That was a trick question, everyone. Thank you, Dean Jamieson, and thanks to everyone watching. You can give back and pay it forward by donating online at Purdue Day of Giving, dayofgiving.purdue.edu. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.